My daughter uninvited me from her wedding because I didn't support her decision to drop out of school and marry a good-for-nothing. But let's see how she pays for the wedding without my credit card. I'm a 55-year-old single father to a 19-year-old daughter who seems determined to make every possible wrong decision. I thought I had done my part by raising her to be smart, careful, and independent, but apparently, none of that made a difference. Now, here I am, watching her marry a walking red flag and ruin her life, while also making mine miserable. Maybe this is one of those tough love stories, but honestly, I'm at my breaking point. My daughter Meg has all the potential in the world, but no intention of using it. She wanted to take a 2-year break from school, in her words, to find herself. She has always been average academically, but she enjoys sports. We supported everything she wanted to do. Whether it was soccer or baseball, we always had her back. But when she said she wanted to take a break from high school, we said no. She claimed she felt overwhelmed by the heavy curriculum. We understood that not all kids learn at the same pace, but the solution wasn't to quit. It was to put in more effort or find help to stay organized. Those years turned out to be the hardest of my life. At first, she said she would focus more on her studies, so I even got her tutors. I expected her to spend more time with her books, but she put in the same effort as before, just the time she spent with tutors and nothing more. The rest of her days were spent watching TV, wandering around town with the wrong crowd, and throwing tantrums whenever she was called out. She even snuck out after I went to bed. Once, she stole my car and was about to leave town, but a traffic cop stopped her just in time. I did everything I could to get her back on track. She has been seeing a therapist on and off for years. It took many late-night talks and endless counseling sessions to convince her to give school and her education a real chance. I thought we had turned a corner and that she was finally ready to get her life together. But that's when the real problems started. Not that there weren't problems before, but things took an even worse turn. Shortly after she gave school another shot, Meg met a guy named Tyler. He's 26 and works as a bakery assistant, delivering pastries to her school's cafe. I have nothing against his job. Honest work is honest work. But Tyler has no direction in life. No plans, no real goals, just a let's see what happens attitude. Even worse, he has a history of being a player. He was married once at 21 to a girl who was 20. They split up after 6 months when they realized it wasn't working. And now, my daughter is completely in love with this guy. Apparently, he had been dating one of Meg's classmates, but then he met Meg. They clicked, and the rest is history. At first, things were fine. He was respectful while it was just a casual relationship, but recently, she dropped a bombshell. They were getting married. At first, I thought she was joking. As a single father of a rebellious teenager, I sometimes pry into her relationships. I even thought she was using this to manipulate me into giving her something she wanted. But when she gave me the details, I was completely shocked. They had already set a date for next month. She was serious. I couldn't believe her decision. She kept talking about how they were soulmates and how age didn't matter. But from what I know, her classmate was also his soulmate not too long ago. According to her, none of that matters. She's blinded by this fantasy, so caught up in the idea of romance that she refuses to see reality. She's 19, he's 26. She still hasn't finished high school and has no plans for the future. With her rebellious phase, she's already lost some time and hasn't graduated yet. And him? He didn't even finish middle school. He doesn't have a stable job. He just delivers bread for his parents' bakery. And here they are, planning a wedding. I asked her, "Do I have any say in this?" She told me that my only role was to smile and hand her over politely if I wanted to attend the wedding. She even said I was lucky to have been informed about it. Some of her friends didn't even tell their parents until after they were already married. I don't know what kind of friends those are, but I don't think they're the kind you should be listening to. I asked if he even had a home of his own. She said he lives in a studio apartment but plans to move into a 1-bedroom. I told her, "We live in a 3-bedroom house with a walk-in closet. Do you think you could live in a studio?" She snapped at me saying, "Why can't I live there if I already spend so much time there?" At that point, I had enough. Spending time somewhere and living there are two completely different things. I tried to reason with her, reminding her that she still had to finish school, still lived with me, and still survived off my credit card. How the hell was she going to adapt to a new life with no education, no job, and no money? She wasn't in the mood to listen. She just said she was getting married, whether I liked it or not, even if it meant going straight to City Hall. Out of desperation, I told her I wanted to meet the guy first. She agreed to set up a meeting this weekend. Honestly, I'm terrified. I don't even know what to say. She keeps insisting that she's an adult and can do whatever she wants. Legally, yes. But 19 is still too young for marriage, at least in our culture. I immediately called Meg's mother, a woman who simply doesn't care about her daughter. She's too busy with her own life. Meg's mother and I divorced 8 years ago and shared custody, but she quickly remarried and Meg didn't take it well. Their relationship became complicated, especially when, a year into her new marriage, she had a baby. Meg felt insecure and neglected. Then, a year later, she had twins. Since then, she hasn't had time for Meg. As for me, I haven't dated anyone all these years. Between working to support us and being a full-time father, I never saw the point. I knew Meg wouldn't be able to handle it. I became her support system, her constant pillar, while her mother was too busy raising her 3 other kids. However, in recent years, especially after she dropped out of high school, I saw Meg reconnecting with her mom. At first, it was a relief, until I realized my ex was just playing the good cop to make up for her absence and stay on Meg's good side. She blindly supported all of Meg's decisions, while I became the nagging, strict parent. Suddenly, her mom became Meg's favorite parent, even though she barely spent any time at her house. I thought maybe if her mother sat her down and talked to her, she could knock some sense into her. After all, in Meg's eyes, her mom had become the cool parent. So I reached out to my ex-wife. She agreed to talk to Meg, but she didn't do it with any real concern. She just said, if they're in love, we should support them. I was speechless. Support them? Support a marriage between a girl who hasn't even finished high school and a man with no real job and no plan? We both knew Meg wasn't ready, but her mother just didn't want to deal with the conflict, so she sugarcoated everything. Her conversation solved nothing, except that she offered to help Meg with the wedding preparations. Now I'm torn. Well, not really. I know what I want. I don't want this wedding to happen. But how do I stop it? Can I get some advice on how to handle this? Update 1. Things have completely turned upside down, but I'll get to that. It all started when I decided to call in reinforcements. My mother, Meg's grandmother, has always been a sharp and practical woman. She's in her 70s, firm and straightforward, never afraid to say things as they are. She agreed to come and talk to Meg. I arranged a family meeting, hoping that if anyone could knock some sense into her, it would be her own grandmother. When Grandma sat Meg down, she didn't hold back. Marriage isn't just about love, it's about commitment, responsibility, and planning. What have you and Tyler planned for your future? Have you thought about finances, income, or family planning? Do you have savings for emergencies? Do you even make enough to put a roof over your heads? Meg sat there, clearly uncomfortable. But Grandma didn't stop. She even shared stories of her own struggles, how difficult it was back in her day to balance family and finances, hoping Meg would understand that love alone is never enough. But Meg just crossed her arms and gave her the same response she gave me. Times have changed. You don't understand. I know what I'm doing. Needless to say, it was like talking to a brick wall, one where the paint hadn't even dried yet. My mother was frustrated. As she left, she told me, she'll have to learn the hard way. That's the only thing left. I decided to meet Tyler face to face and see what he was really made of. We sat down at a restaurant, and I asked him the big question. What are your plans for the future? He just shrugged. We'll figure it out as we go. Love is more important than money. I wanted to punch him. It took every ounce of self-control I had not to lose my temper. I tried to explain that marriage isn't just about love, it's about building a stable life together. I wanted to give him a chance to prove he had a plan, that he could take care of my daughter. But he just sat there, pretending to listen when it was obvious he wasn't. I suggested they date for a few more years, and if things still worked out, then they could get married. I even suggested they live together for a few months before making such a big commitment. But neither of them liked my ideas. Then Tyler mentioned that even his own parents had doubts about this marriage. That gave me a sliver of hope. Maybe if I spoke with them, we could stop this disaster together. I invited his parents to dinner the next day. When they arrived, I noticed they were humble, hard-working people, and to my relief, they shared my concerns. They also thought it was a bad idea for them to get married. I realized they were in the same tough spot as me. After they left, Meg completely lost it. She said I had betrayed her by expressing my concerns about her marriage. I told her I was just trying to have a discussion, but she was in her own world. She accused me of trying to ruin her life and said she wouldn't let me. Then she dropped the bomb. "If you can't support me, then stay out of it," she said. I stopped her and asked, "Do you even hear yourself right now?" She snapped back, "Of course I do." I don't want a grumpy, miserable face ruining my special day. I asked, "You don't really mean that, do you?" But she made it clear. She meant every word. She was officially banning me from her wedding because I didn't support her. Then she stormed off to her room saying she didn't want to be around the negative energy of someone who didn't believe in her happiness. I was crushed. It felt like a stab to the heart, but I had no choice but to accept it. She didn't want me there, so I wouldn't go. But there was one thing I wouldn't do: fund a wedding I wasn't even invited to. I froze my credit card. If she thought she was going to plan a wedding with my money, she had another thing coming. Why should I pay for a wedding I wasn't welcome at? Within hours, she was calling me, furious. She screamed that I had ruined everything. She accused me of being selfish and trying to control her life. I calmly told her, "If you want to make adult decisions, then you have to deal with adult consequences." She ran straight to her mother, begging for financial help. Meg really thought her mother, a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids, married to the only breadwinner in the house, was going to pay for her wedding? Well, she was wrong. Her mother shed a few tears of frustration and told her no. Meg had officially burned her last option. And Grandma? She's the last person who would ever finance this ridiculous wedding. I don't know what she's going to do now, but my gut tells me she'll go through with it, even if it means getting married at City Hall. The disaster feels inevitable. We're not speaking. We avoid each other at home. As the wedding date gets closer, I feel worse about everything. It's only a matter of days before she leaves the house. That day was bound to come eventually, but no parent ever wants to say goodbye to their child like this. Update 2. Thank you for all the support. I truly appreciate the messages and comments from other parents, and even some moms. I'm sorry for the delay in updating, but here it goes. As I predicted, Meg got married despite all the obstacles, and as expected, things are not going well for them. After I cut off her financial support, she wasn't about to let a frozen credit card stop her. Of course not. She and Tyler went to the bank and took out a loan to pay for their wedding. She rubbed it in my face, saying, "Did you really think freezing your stupid card would stop the wedding? It's happening as planned, whether you like it or not." I just said, "All right," and let it happen. At this point, there was nothing more I could do. They were both adults, and if they didn't want to listen to my advice, or anyone else's, then they would have to learn the lesson on their own. They borrowed thousands of dollars. They had the venue, the flowers, the catering, even a small live band. Tyler's family wasn't thrilled about it either, but they attended, looking miserable the whole time. His dad even video called me during the ceremony. Meg's friends helped out where they could, though they also didn't think it was a good idea. Some of her closest friends tried to talk sense into her, but she shut them out, convinced they were just jealous of her happiness. No, these weren't the same friends who got married without telling their parents, if you were wondering. She was isolating herself from everyone who cared about her, just to cling to this illusion of a perfect wedding. One of her childhood friends, who also happens to be our neighbor, called me after the wedding to tell me what happened. She said, "I don't know what's wrong with her. It's like she's living in a fantasy world." That hurt. I felt pathetic for being excluded. I know I was against the wedding from the start, but I never wanted to miss it. One of the most honorable and precious moments in life is walking your daughter down the aisle. But Meg took that honor away from me. When she left home, I felt a pain that no parent ever wants to experience. I don't agree with what she did, but I can't bring myself to wish her a miserable life either. It's been 2 months since the wedding, and things have already started falling apart. Last week, Tyler showed up at my door. He looked exhausted, like a man who had aged 10 years in just a few months. I didn't want to let him in, but I did. He avoided the real reason he was there, but I could tell he was struggling financially. He told me he had taken on another job on top of working at his parents' bakery. Meg was also going to job interviews, but you can imagine the kind of jobs available to someone who dropped out of high school. Yes, Meg never finished school, despite having only a few subjects left. And from what I gathered, she must have been making things even harder for them. Then he got to the point. Their income wasn't enough to make ends meet. Obviously, they were behind on their loan payments, rent, and utility bills. He said they were drowning in debt and asked if I could help them, just until they could get their heads above water. I looked at him, remembering how he once told me that love is more important than money. I told him, "No. I'm sorry, but I can't help." I continued, "If my daughter is so proud that she doesn't want me in her life, why should I care? Besides, if love is more important than money, maybe you should go to the bank and offer your love to the account manager. I can't promise they'll accept it. In fact, they might call the police if you do. But hey, it's worth a try, right?" I told him they had to figure it out on their own, just like he had said before. He looked like I had punched him in the gut. But I didn't waver. He left, shoulders slumped. That night, Meg called me, furious and screaming, "You humiliated him! He came to you in good faith and you threw it back in his face. I thought you would support me, but instead you just emasculated him by reminding him we have no money." I replied, "You wanted me out of your life. And in case you didn't realize, this is exactly what that means." She called me a terrible father for refusing to help her start her life with the man she loves. I asked her, "You knew he didn't make much money. How did you expect to keep up the same lifestyle as before?" Her response shocked me, and it might shock you too. "I thought I'd still have your card, but you took it away." Wow. So, Meg doesn't want me in her life, she doesn't want my advice, but she wants my credit card? Unbelievable. I told her, "You know what? You deserve every bit of the hardship you're going through. Maybe I protected you too much. Maybe I gave you more than I should have. This should be a lesson for you." She was still screaming something, but I hung up. The conflict didn't end there. Her mother was furious with me for letting Meg suffer and accused me of ruining her chance at a happy life. But there was nothing she could say to convince me, especially since she was just as much to blame for Meg's choices. Deep down, I knew Meg needed to hit rock bottom before she could truly understand. It hurts knowing she's struggling, but she needs to go through this. She needs to learn gratitude and humility, the kind of lessons only hard times can teach. The lesson I couldn't teach her. Maybe her own bad decisions will. Still, as a father, I can't deny that I hope she gets through this, that she learns something valuable and grows from it. But beyond that, there's nothing I can do. Any attempt to help her now would only make things worse. I know there's a chance she'll hate me for the rest of her life. But if I bail her out now, all I'll be doing is delaying the inevitable, and she'll never learn anything. Update 3. Last month, Meg sent me a series of panicked text messages. It was almost midnight, and I was asleep. But her messages kept coming one after another, waking me up. They were cryptic, and I could barely understand them, but she was terrified. I thought something had happened, maybe an accident involving her or Tyler. I called her immediately. After a lot of hesitation, she finally admitted that she thought she might be pregnant. She was scared and had no idea how they could handle a baby, especially with their finances already in complete disarray. Through her sobs, she kept asking, "What am I going to do?" She was calling me from the bathroom while Tyler slept in the bedroom, not wanting to wake him and add to his stress. I wanted to say, "This is what you chose." But the father in me couldn't be that cold. Instead, I told her that if it came to it, they would have to find a way to deal with it. But I also made it clear that I wouldn't be paying for their mistakes. I wasn't going to give them money in any form. I told her to be absolutely sure before breaking the news to Tyler. I scheduled a doctor's appointment for her the next day. The doctor told her to wait a week for confirmation. Meg completely lost her mind during that waiting period. She asked me to recommend Tyler for a job through my network or hire him at my office. To give you some context, I run a small agency. My employees are trained professionals, and Tyler has no real skills or the judgment to learn. How could I recommend or hire him? I stalled by saying, "Let's wait for confirmation first," but she kept pushing me to do it immediately. When I didn't, I had to deal with her accusations, calling me a capitalist pig and throwing other nonsense my way. Luckily for her, it turned out to be a false alarm. She wasn't pregnant. Unfortunately for her, the false alarm didn't teach her anything. Instead, it only seemed to strengthen her determination. She became colder and more distant because I didn't hire Tyler. Some of you might think it was cruel of me not to hire him, just like my daughter and my ex do, but honestly, I feel like I did the right thing. During one of our conversations, she casually said, "Why are you being so stubborn? After all, everything is going to be mine eventually. I'm your heir." I told her, "No. Not necessarily. I could spend all my money on early retirement or traveling. Who knows? Maybe I'll remarry and need the money for all that." After seeing how self-centered she's become, I honestly feel like I'd rather leave everything to charity than to her. Why should I? She never listened to me. She excluded me from her wedding. She never apologized. She barely keeps in touch. And when she does talk to me, all she does is throw every past mistake I've ever made back in my face. It breaks my heart, but sending her money will only reinforce this entire mess. I know it's not easy to be the kind of parent who tries to teach their child a life lesson, but at this point, I have to stand my ground. Right now, I feel like I've lost my daughter to her own pride. I'm just a father sitting here watching as she stumbles through the choices she's made. Maybe, just maybe, one day she'll realize that I was only trying to protect her. Until then, I'm here, waiting, hoping that one day she'll put aside her pride, see me for the father that I am, and come back, not demanding money. But with each passing day, that possibility feels more and more distant. Update 4. Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you're all doing well. After these 2 years without much contact, I really missed sharing updates with you. But honestly, there wasn't anything significant to talk about, until now. Before I get into what's happened, I want to mention something personal. Over the past few months, I've been seeing someone. It's a pretty serious relationship at this point, though we're not yet thinking about moving in together or marriage. I just wanted to mention this because I know some of you were concerned about me or encouraged me to start dating again. Now that I no longer have to be a full-time parent, I finally have the time to focus on myself. Now, about Meg, my daughter. Our relationship has remained distant. We've only contacted each other for important events, but things have never returned to how they used to be. There have been multiple occasions where she asked me for money or tried to get me to pay for things, but I always told her no. This led to arguments, and after each one, we'd go long periods without speaking. However, in recent months, she stopped asking me for money. I saw that as a small improvement, not in our relationship, but at least in her approach to life. Even though she and Tyler were barely scraping by, they were doing it on their own. As far as I know, they hadn't asked for help from anyone. In some ways, that was progress. But then, everything changed about a month ago. I wish I could have written sooner, but my girlfriend and I took a 2-week vacation. We got back last week, and between preparing for the trip and settling back into my routine, I didn't have time to sit down and update you. Here's what happened. Meg is getting a divorce. I don't know many details, only that their relationship deteriorated and they both agreed to go their separate ways. I'm not going to say much about that. At this point, you all know how I feel. However, what matters now is what happened afterward. During this time, Meg had been working, and I think that's been good for her. But because she never finished school, her job doesn't pay well. And in all this time, she never made an effort to go back and finish her education. I don't know if it's because she hasn't had the time or if she simply doesn't want to. Either way, she now has nowhere to go. With the divorce, neither she nor Tyler can afford the apartment they were living in. So, as you might have guessed, Meg asked if she could move back in with me. My answer was simple. I told her no. Not just because I don't believe she's truly learned her lesson, but also because I value my independence and privacy. I don't know if I'll ever move in with my girlfriend, but at the very least, I want to keep that option open. Of course, it's not like Meg living with me would completely prevent that, but I feel like I've already fulfilled my role as a parent. I did my best to guide her toward a better life, but she repeatedly ignored my advice. Throughout all this time, she has never apologized or shown any real remorse for how she treated me. That's why I believe this situation, one she put herself in, is just another mistake she needs to face in order to grow. Her mother told me I should give her a chance because, according to her, Meg has changed. I replied, "If you believe that, then you should be the one to give her that chance and let her live with you." All of this happened before my trip. But at least by the time I returned, Meg had already found a place to live. She moved in with a coworker. Maybe this isn't the ending everyone expected. I know it's not the one I expected. But sometimes, life puts you in situations you never saw coming. I had hoped Meg would mature, finish school, and build a better future for herself. But if she doesn't want to change, no one else can do it for her.